So today we are reviewing a rough transcript of a commentary piece analyzing Candace Owens' appearance on the Hodge Twins show, where she explicitly accuses Benjamin Netanyahu of murdering Charlie Kirk.
Let's jump right into the feedback to maximize our time.
Starting off, the commentary undermines its own legitimate analysis of logical fallacy by relying way too heavily on dismissive, colloquial insult.
Yeah, I noticed that immediately. The source actually correctly identifies this really fascinating bit of circular logic.
Right, the idea that the denial itself is proof of guilt.
Exactly, which is a strong analytical observation. It's the kind of insight that listeners tune in for. But the weakness here is that the impact is almost entirely diluted because it's sandwiched between terms like psychotic, effing psychotic, bitch, and retarded.
Yeah, it really lowers the discourse to a schoolyard level.
It does.
And it potentially alienates listeners who might otherwise agree with the logical deconstruction you're presenting. It frames the hosts not as serious critics dismantling a conspiracy theory, but just as reactive mockers.
Right. You can literally feel the energy in the room drop from intellectual analysis to gossip the moment those words hit the page.
So my suggestion would be to replace that emotive labeling with precise, descriptive language that characterizes the rhetorical behavior, rather than just attacking the person's mental state.
Maintain the outrage, but channel it.
Exactly. Channel it into dismantling the argument structure. For a concrete example, instead of saying that logic is so fucking psychotic, describe the argument as a classic Kafkaesque trap.
Oh, I like that. Or unfalsifiable conspiracy thinking.
Yes, unfalsifiable is a great word because it tells the audience that Owens has created a scenario where she literally cannot be proven wrong.
Which is a hallmark of propaganda.
Right. That hits so much harder than just calling it psychotic. And looking at the section where they discuss the denial, the transcript says something like, if she came at us, we would say, bitch, no, we didn't.
Yeah, it's conversational, but it completely misses the dynamic at play.
Completely. A stronger approach is to articulate that a denial is the standard rational response to an accusation. Treating a standard denial as suspicious is a manipulation tact. By framing the denial as evidence of guilt, she removes the accused's ability to defend themselves. That's a structural critique.
And it's a way more useful to the reader. Also, regarding the Hodge twins, the text refers to them as clowns.
Right, which is dismissive.
And not instructive at all. A more effective critique would describe specifically why their platform facilitates these unchecked accusations. You could cite the lack of pushback or the echo chamber nature of the dialogue.
That changes the whole tone from, these guys are losers to these guys are enablers of defamation. It shifts the blame to their function in the media ecosystem.
Moving on. The current flow of the material bounces chronologically between current events and past tweets, which obscures the pattern of escalation being described.
It jumps around a lot.
Way too much. The narrative jumps from the current Hodge Twins interview way back to a tweet from November 17th, then over to a general discussion of Owens accusing France and Egyptian planes and bees.
The bees.
Right, the bees. And then back to the present. The weakness is this scattershot approach treats all these data points as isolated incidents of erratic behavior.
Like she's just pulling reference cards out of a hat?
Exactly.
Rather than showing a cohesive narrative of shifting goalposts.
So the suggestion here is to reorganize the evidence to build a chronological case of escalation and deflection. Show how the accusations have mutated from vague allusions to specific defamation as her previous predictions failed to materialize.
Tell a story.
Right. For a concrete example, start with the November 17th tweet. Establish that Owens promised a transformative day regarding this investigation 3 months ago. She planted a flag.
And then highlight the result of that promise. Nothing changed. That is your inciting incident? Yes. And from there, present the Egyptian planes and the bees' accusations as the vague phase. She was throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck.
And then you climax with the Hodge Twins clip as the explicit phase. You argue that the shift to naming Netanyahu is a desperate attempt to maintain relevance after the November 17th nothing burger.
It frames the narrative as a calculated strategy rather than just random noise. It gives the listeners a clear path to follow up the ladder of escalation.
Looking at the political shift, the comparison between her past anti-identity politics stance and her current rhetoric is a strong insight that needs more analytical weight than a single shocking quote provides.
Yeah, they touch on it, but they don't land the plane.
The weakness is that the segment contrasts her previous anti-BLM stance with her current race card usage, and it's punctuated by that clip where she claims Ben Shapiro grips a microphone like the neck of a black woman.
It's a genuinely shocking image.
It is, but the analysis just stops at, oh, she's a liberal again.
Right, which completely misses the opportunity to explore why this specific imagery is so damaging to her original credibility.
So the suggestion is to use that Shapiro neck quote not just as a punchline, but as the anchor for a deeper analysis of rhetorical betrayal. Connect the before and after to the specific audience she's trying to cultivate now versus the one she abandoned.
Let's break down a concrete example of that. Analyze the specific imagery of gripping the neck of a black woman. It invokes George Floyd, it invokes slavery, it invokes physical abuse.
It utilizes the exact emotional manipulation she built a career on debunking.
Exactly. She spent years telling her audience that facts don't care about your feelings. Now she's effectively saying, ignore the facts, look at this image that makes you feel like Ben Shapiro is a violent racist.
It's a total inversion of her philosophy.
And you can also contrast that with the tonal shift right after. You have this heavy, racially charged accusation against Shapiro, and then immediately in the transcript, there's a joke about him hydrating.
Right, the prop comedy bit.
Yeah, the critique should use that contrast to show the jarring tonal shifts in her content. It shows a lack of seriousness. If you genuinely believed someone was a violent racist capable of murder, you wouldn't follow it up with a joke about water bottles.
It highlights the performative nature of the whole controversy.
Instead of just saying her colors have changed, explicitly map out the trajectory from facts over feelings to feelings over facts.
And finally, the discussion regarding potential lawsuits is repetitive and relies on wishful thinking rather than clearly defining the threshold for defamation.
There is so much talk about lawsuits in this transcript.
So much. They repeatedly state, I want him to sue her, or everybody needs to do it. They mention Brigitte Macron's litigation. The weakness is that the conversation loops around this emotional desire for a lawsuit without clearly distinguishing why the Hodge Twins' appearance is legally distinct from her previous accusation.
It blurs the line between she accused everyone and this specific instance is actionable. It sounds more like fan fiction than legal analysis.
Right. The listener is just left wondering, okay, but can he actually sue her?
So the suggestion is to tighten the legal commentary by focusing strictly on the transition from implication to assertion. Move beyond, I hope she gets sued, to here is why this specific statement is legally perilous.
As a concrete example, explicitly contrast the Jordan S90 point in the text where they mention Israel can't sue because it's too vague with the actual Hodge Twins transcript.
Yes, isolate the phrase, unless you most certainly did. Frame this not just as an accusation, but as a statement of fact that crosses the line of protected opinion.
That's the legal hook right there. Up until that point, she could hide behind, I'm just asking questions. But when she says, unless you most certainly did, she's making a statement of fact.
That distinction is exactly what the audience needs to learn. And when mentioning the native hydrate ad read,
oh man, that transition was wild.
Right? Seamless transition from a murder accusation to go to nativehydrate.com. Try it risk-free.
Use that to juxtapose the seriousness of a murder accusation with the commercial nature of the content. Question the intent behind the controversy. Is this entire thing just a marketing funnel for clicks and sales?
Exposing the grift like that hits so much harder than just yelling sue her. It strips away the mystique and reminds the listener that this is a business transaction.
So, just to recap what we've covered today, we discussed elevating the tone by removing ad hominem attacks to let the logical critique shine.
We talked about restructuring the timeline to show a pattern of escalation from the November 17th tweet to the current explicit accusation.
Deepening the analysis of her shift in identity politics beyond just surface-level hypocrisy.
And sharpening the legal arguments to focus on the shift from vague to explicit liability.
The call to action is to implement these structural and tonal shifts to transform the piece from a reaction video into a robust dismantling of the subject's arguments.
Absolutely. We'd love to see the listener submit the revised script for a follow-up critique. Let us see how these tools change the shape of the piece.
It makes a world of difference.
It really does. Thank you for joining us for this critique.